Okay, so our presentation is called From Resistance to Buy-in, Master Persuasive Communication for Instructional Designers. And I just want to be a little transparent from the get-go, let you all know I'm hoping that this presentation comes off more in a conversational style. Kathryn and I are just going to share our experiences and tips that have worked for us in our experience as instructional designers, but also as people who have even worked in the teaching realm, which Kathryn I know still does now to this day, on top of being an ID. So I'm going to go ahead and advance here. These are our learning outcomes. This was also in the email that Tom sent, so I'm not going to read off all of these, but these are our outcomes for today. And I'll just introduce myself really quickly again. So I work at the College of Pharmacy at the University of Florida as an ID. I work remotely. So for those of you wondering, do I have a virtual background? No, I live in the city of Seattle. So I do work remotely for the University of Florida, operating 3 hours behind you guys. So it's 11 a.m. over here still. And I'll let Kathryn introduce herself.
And I work for the College of Agricultural and Life Sciences. I did work with Sky at the College of Pharmacy for a year, but now I'm an ID3 at the Center of Online Learning and Technology.
Yes. And I also, one thing I just wanted to mention too is we will definitely tackle some Q&A at the end. So, I mean, feel free if you want to pop things in the chat. I won't be personally monitoring that just so we don't get distracted, but there should be some time at the end for us to do some questions and answers. All right, so before I get into the very beginning of the presentation, I like to get some data here because I know that there might be people in different roles. I will say, this presentation is mostly geared for instructional designers who work in the higher education realm, although if you work in corporate, I think that a lot of what we talk about could be applied to that as well as educational technologists. So even if you're not doing like primary ID responsibilities, you're working with SMEs. Same thing with what I put here for academic/technical support. Um, oh, I do see that there is some faculty here. So at the end of the day, you guys are all still welcome to be here. But I did want to be transparent. This is mostly geared for our IDs in higher ed and other support specialists who work with faculty/subject matter experts. So I'm just going to give this another few more seconds to roll in so we have that data. Looks like there's 197 participants, so probably we get a couple more responses in here. So it looks like we did mostly meet the target audience. We do have mostly IDs in higher ed. Only one person working in corporate.
Thank you, brave one person.
All right. So for the sake of time, I am just going to go ahead and advance. But I think that the results are probably going to be pretty similar. So this is mostly IDs working in higher education with us today. So here's kind of our roadmap of what we're going to talk about today. Five, what we call guidelines, or you could refer to them as tips, but really kind of things that we do in our process. I'm going to hit these first three, and then Kathryn's going to kind of come in at 4 and 5. So we're going to talk about investing in the relationship, the SME ID relationship, listening to understand, finding middle ground, expecting difficulties, and exploring different modes of communication. All right, so real quick, I want you to just think about your relationship with a challenging SME. Which word below best describes the nature of that relationship? And I'm going to show the results in a moment before I get started. I want you to just think about this because I think that with different people, you can have different types of relationships. And there's really no right or wrong answer here. I think I have people that I work with that fall into all these categories. We've got 36 responses. Going to give it another second before I show you guys. I think a lot of what we like to do today as well is have those moments of self-reflection because I think to be persuasive and to take the next step forward in your relationship, you have to be very reflective about what is the nature of that relationship that you have with your SME. Okay, so we have over 100, so I'm going to go ahead and take a look at this. Oh, wow. Okay, so
Oh,
we have a lot of transactional relationships,
ah,
a lot of transactional. Only six amicable. Now I realize I think I only enabled, you can only select one here, but
mhm,
we are talking about a challenging SME, and that's good.
right.
I mean, I have challenging ones for sure that I would say collaborative. I have some that I would say that are transactional, and maybe even some that are still amicable, right? Sometimes you might be kind of friendly with someone, but you're not really accomplishing all those goals that you want to. I'm going to go ahead and move on, but if you want, with your phone, feel free to take a picture of this or take a screenshot if you want to see what everyone else is saying. But lots of transactional. So that first part of our roadmap today is investing and building the relationship. This is a very important first step when you're working with your SME. And there's a reason that I've highlighted both invest and relationship here, right? One, relationship, because you're working with someone, maybe it's just for a project for a few weeks, maybe it's a few months, maybe it's several years. At the College of Pharmacy, I work with people for a matter of years. So I have some really long-term relationships. But it's not like going into a fast food restaurant, for example, where you have a very quick client guest interaction. We have long-term interactions with our clients, right? And why do I use this word invest? So you probably see that word, and the first thing that's going to come to mind is something financial, right? So you invest in a house, and maybe you're going to get something out of it, equity. Maybe you sell it in X amount of years when the market's good, or you invest in a nice car, or I don't know, expensive jewelry that's like heirlooms. There's a lot of things that we invest in, and I think we think of it in a financial way. But have you ever thought about it in building a relationship, right? Because what is our job? We are support to our SMEs, right? We want to help them achieve goals for our learners. In order to do that, there's a lot of things that we have to do. We have to invest in a healthy relationship before we can get their trust and to get them to adopt innovation, which I think is the reason a lot of you guys are here today, right? Because we have complications with our SMEs. How do we get them to, you know, adopt innovation? The first thing I always ask myself is, who am I working with? I think at surface level, this seems like a very obvious question. You might say, if my faculty member, I work with people in the College of Pharmacy. They're pharmacists, right? Because they have PharmD degrees, or some of them are researchers, but nonetheless, they work in the field of pharmacy, right? So I think we always think label, okay, they're a professor, or if you're that one corporate ID, whatever field they're working in. But I think that it's easy to forget that we are working with human beings who have personalities, passions, goals, desires. We work with, a wide range of personalities, and it's really important to step back and ask yourself, who am I working with? And learn about that person. Again, because we want to gain trust. And you can't really do that if your relationship is just very surface level. How do you do that? So you acquaint yourself with your subject matter expert. So again, using my example here, because I work with primarily pharmacists, I'm usually curious as to why they got to pharmacy. There's usually a wide range of responses here. Maybe it's like patient care, or maybe some of them wanted it for the money. I don't think any of them would actually tell me that straight up. But there's different reasons why they do what they do. Or maybe if you're working with faculty that are not, within like the medical field, if they just have a PhD, for example, they probably were very invested in research. And so maybe teaching is just another thing that they're required to do, but they don't really want to do. It's really important to get that why from your SME. So that's always what I like to come in asking myself is, why do they do what they do? Why is this project even existing that I'm working on with them? And I put this, I'm so happy you asked, because ideally is you want to get them to talk about their passion, or talk about themselves very passionately. So what happens if you have difficulty with this, right? Like Kathryn mentioned, she's introverted. I'm also consider myself introverted. I think that we work with some people that it might be hard to just, oh, on that first meeting talk about, our personalities, or like if we have cats, for example. And in this case, I would say to be resourceful and to do your research. I do this all the time. There's many avenues to do this. I think the first thing I would explore is LinkedIn. Most people nowadays have LinkedIn, but I do know there are a number of people who probably don't. I've been pretty lucky with pharmacy because a lot of people in the medical fields tend to have a LinkedIn. But I know that, there's faculty that I've worked with before this job that when I've looked them up, they have like virtually nothing. And so in that case, I would go down to this next bullet point, which is, either the university site or maybe the company website, or really any Googling that you can do to learn about them if you feel like they may not share that information with you right away. Mutual colleagues. Sometimes I've like had meetings with people and they're friends with the person, that primary SME that I'm working with, and I learn things about them through that person. I've learned things about my SMEs through Kathryn because she worked at pharmacy before I did, so I had that. I was able to learn things about them that I probably wouldn't have learned otherwise. And then again, to this aspect of their passion, right? ResearchGate, I put that there, but really what I mean is, finding, any articles you can, like if they have PhDs, it's very likely that they're, publishing, right? So what kind of articles are they putting out? Try to get some insight onto what drives them, right? Like why are they so passionate? Because again, at the surface level, yeah, sure, maybe they're a pharmacist, but are they interested in something like pharmacogenetics or pharmacodynamics? You want to really find out, dig a little bit deeper into their passions, and that's going to help them open up and build trust. And along with this, I think there's something to be said about finding something in common. So I put this picture of two people drinking coffee here because I think most of us probably do drink coffee or intake some form of caffeine. And that's maybe something simple you do on your first meeting. Maybe have a cup of coffee or something and say like, "Hey, do you like coffee?" Or maybe, if you're someone that works physically close to your SME, maybe you can actually go physically get coffee with them or try to in some way bring up something that you do have in common. And I do have a brief example to give you, not exactly with an SME, but this is a more recent example. So I recently went to my HR department about something, and it was something positive, but I had a meeting with the director of my HR department. So naturally, as anyone I think here would, you're probably gonna have some anxiety if you're meeting with someone from human resources. And so when I hopped onto the Zoom, if you see my background today, so again, this is not my virtual background, this is just my apartment. I have this little short cat tree in the background. The first thing that she noticed was the cat tree, and she asked about my cats. And, she was saying, "Oh, I love cats. I have cats." And I feel like, my anxiety initially going to the meeting was way up here. And then after that, it went down, right? So just kind of establishing something that you have in common. Again, it kind of brings you closer together. You don't have to give each other your life story, for example, but if you're able to share something, that's definitely going to begin building that relationship.
Rachel had some good advice in the chat. She said that the common goal is what they have in common, and that's important. But if you
Yeah.
jump right into needs analysis right away without pausing to recognize we're both humans, or I think that getting to know them at the beginning is nice, at least as part of the needs analysis, asking them why they're passionate about what they teach is
Yes.
really helpful. Rather than just jumping right into the project. And then when conflict arises, you don't want that first connection to be difficult. So if you could
Right.
disarm with some commonality, like even a conversation about the weather, right? Or something neutral. No one likes bad weather.
Yes. I do this all the time, even if it's small talk. I mean, as long as it just kind of sparks some conversation and takes down the anxiety and it's not just all business, right? I mean, I know it kind of goes back to transactional, right? There's always going to be that transactional aspect, but you do want to kind of pull that away a little bit if you can, right? Because we're human at the end of the day. We all have
Mm.
lives, and part of the reason we're here and we're with the SME is right to get a paycheck, but it's also one of our passions. And at the end of the day, we're still human with our own personalities. And then this gets me a good segue whenever she mentioned needs analysis, right? So define your role and set expectations. So I want us to focus our attention first. I know I've got lots of stuff on the slide. Focus your attention on this blue box really quick. Okay. So accept that we are not equal. I think that this is a really important component to have in your mindset as an instructional designer going into that relationship. We are support. In many ways, we are the help for them. And so we're going to do what we can to help them, but we have to remember that we're not equals, right? Especially if you work in the university system, you're probably classified as staff, and then the person you're working with is faculty, right? They might have tenure, etc. We're there to help them, but you know, it's kind of just that pill that we have to swallow that we're not their equal. And because of that, I don't need credit, right? You don't need credit. That's great if they want to credit you, or if maybe you do something great together and you present together on a project. But at the end of the day, we're doing what we're doing because we care about the learners and we're designing for the learners. And we're trying to help our teachers or educators get to that goal, right? And then this third point here on the blue box,
This
never
is
go to
my point,
war with,
Sky.
yes, yes,
Never get into a
this,
power struggle. Just don't.
yes. And for those of you who may not have English as your first language, so go to war is an expression, it's a metaphor, which basically means like you're kind of arguing with someone and you're very both headstrong about it and you're not coming to kind of a conclusion, right? So that's what go to war means. And I put that there because Kathryn has said this to me many times before when working with her, and I've always loved this expression. And I just have to remind myself of that, right? So if I'm not in agreement with something, do not go to war because you're not going to win and it's not worth it and it will tarnish the relationship. So moving over to this yellow box on the right here, illustrate how you can help. I just realized my first and third bullet point are kind of similar or the same thing. Show your subject matter expert examples of how you helped others, right? So if you do want to persuade them, it's important that you can visually show them something. It doesn't have to be the full project or whatever it is you want to show them, but you do, to be more convincing, it's important that you show what others have done. And I think that also taps into that theory of diffusion of innovation, where you influence others by what you're doing, right? And then the second bullet point here is really important as well. So establish yourself as an authority, not the authority. That goes along with not being equal, right? You're still an authority, right? If you're an instructional designer, you've established yourself with a certain amount of expertise in your role. And there's a reason that you're working with your subject matter expert, and they're not just creating the training or the project or the course on their own. You're still there working with them. So it's important in that initial stage of building the relationship that you let them know what it is that you can do for them. And that's going to be similar to something that I'm going to say in this next section, which is listen to understand. Right. So, what does your SME need from you? We provide a wide range of services and, we have different areas of expertise, but it's really important to listen exactly what do you need in a particular course to do for them or a specific project, right? If you look at this graph here, I think we want to mentally remind ourselves that, again, you could do A, B, C, D, E, F, G, etc., but your SME might only need you to do A and C. I think it's really important that we remind ourselves we are there to help them. So what exactly are those needs, right? Coming into that after, sort of building that relationship and then getting to the needs analysis. What exactly do they need from us, right? Because we're also thinking about what are the needs of the course. Another way to look at this is scope of practice, right? So again, we could do many things, but they only need us to practice within a certain scope most of the time. Invest interest in their needs. So again, with this idea of investment, it's really important to, not only get what they need, but to listen to them and to ask probing questions, let them be passionate about it. Again, this kind of goes back to, you know, researching them or maybe asking them about their research. Why are they teaching what they're teaching or why are they delivering, X training if it's a training? It's very important to show them that you care and, different modes of communication you do that, right? Maybe you're nodding your head or asking follow-up questions about what they're explaining to you. Again, I think just this recurring idea of letting your subject matter expert kind of be like the superstar, like you just really want them, you almost have to make it all about them in a way. Let them speak to their passions. And then getting into this topic of empathy, this is one of the biggest things I think that contribute to a good relationship with your SME, especially when you get to conflict. And I know I didn't put a lot on the slide, but this actually is one of the most important things that I think about when I work with my faculty is to put yourself in their shoes. So if you're having a challenge with them, sometimes you have to take a step back and ask yourself, what is the reason that they're being resistant to this idea that I proposed? Right? So they're going to have their reasons, or maybe sometimes they even explain to you, but maybe there's something behind the lines. Maybe they don't explain it to you and you have to kind of figure it out on the own, but you don't want to get too caught up on saying, okay, well, I'm an expert in this and design, and I know that this is the right answer because maybe there's an alternate solution to that, which is another thing that I'm going to get to soon. So understanding their problem is key to solving them. And so because I said this is so important, I actually do want you to sit here and kind of journalize. So I want you to put yourself in the shoes of your SME, of your or any SME that you have. Um, Time when you had some conflict with them, you proposed an idea, didn't go well. What is one reason that they didn't accept? Try to think about that for a moment. There's, again, not one right answer to this, and I'm just going to let the responses kind of flood in and show so we can see. Yeah. Technology is a big one. I think that's a very common issue. Time constraints. I like the my students love it this way, right? So maybe, you're already doing so it's like that mentality of if it's not broke, don't fix it. Fear of failure. That's one that me and Kathryn had discussed when we were talking about this presentation beforehand. Sometimes they've been doing something a certain way and they're afraid of failure, right? They don't
So,
want that to be a bad reflection of them.
Sky, thank you. So there was a question by Judith. And we talked about this when we were preparing the presentation. Sky works for a team where his SMEs are required to work with him, and I work for a team where it's voluntary. They come to us for help. It's not required, and it does change that SME to ID relationship dramatically. And I think Sky has to work harder at establishing the relationship because they come to the relationship as a requirement. Like, I have to be here versus they come to me, they want to be here and they want the help mostly. Some have been told to come, but I would say most are very grateful and thankful for the help. And so, Sky, you want to talk on that for just a moment while they're typing?
Yes, that's a really good point. So, Kathryn and I, as instructional designers, we have different scope, and it is very different because I'm basically assigned to a large number of faculty, kind of as like this luxury service to the college. Whereas there's areas of University of Florida, like Kathryn's example, where, they're kind of creating this contract and they say, oh, I really need help and I'm going to go to you. So you're already kind of coming into that relationship as I need you for something. In my case, I'm going to them and many of them may not understand fully my scope of practice. And so I have to do, I do have to work kind of hard to get them to work with me so we can innovate. There's some that already know, and there's some that love to utilize me maximum capacity. I mean, that's great. But I think that's another thing to consider, like in your specific role, to what degree are you working with faculty? And, did they come to you? Or are you just kind of given to them? So, I think with the amount of people here today, there's probably some that might relate to my example where you're just kind of offered to the faculty, but there's probably a lot of you too who, are on an ads needs basis and they say, oh, I have a gap and I need help solving that. For time, I do want to move forward. There was one I saw here that I liked, but I can't remember what it was. So I'm gonna move forward. But I think that we do get to save these responses. So thank you so much for typing these out. And, on your own time, I would say just type out more of these and really think about why, there's some resistance. Past experiences, sure, but maybe think about current projects now where you're getting resistance. Ask yourself, why is it that they're being resistant? And so then we kind of flip the switch, right, to seek empathy. After we've established the trust, we're building the relationship. This is our time to kind of come in, right, and say, who are we designing for? So I highlight this word gently. This is incredibly important. Don't just remind them who's the end user, aka the learner, etc. Gently remind them again, because I think in a good relationship, communication is absolutely key. Kathryn's going to talk about modes of communication later and get into this more, but you know, we want to get their empathy too, but we have to remind them who our end user is and how do we do that kindly. And again, we'll see those modes of communication. This segues me into my next topic, actually, which is finding middle ground. Okay. So before I get into that, I have another question for you guys, and that's when working with an SME, what do you normally do after rejection to an initial suggestion or proposed idea? And I think I've set it up to where you can answer multiple things for this, and I'll show the results in just a moment. Do you stop at the initial rejection and you just move forward from there? That's it. It's their way or the highway. Do you revisit that initial suggestion and you kind of back it up with evidence and maybe research and you show them this is really why I think that we should do this? Or, and this could be in conjunction with the second one, do you propose alternative ideas that achieve the same objective? We got 50 responses in here, hoping that we can get some more. I think once I hit 100, I'll go ahead and reveal. I think so far when we've done these, me and Kathryn have been kind of surprised that that's why I love polling. I think sometimes you expect something and then you end up seeing something totally different.
I just want to say for the record, I think Sky was born naturally a good communicator, and I struggle. And I didn't realize that that was the area that I needed to work on the most when I became an instructional designer. But with time, um, I became better and then better, and then I'm still working on it. And I admire Sky greatly. Um,
Thank you.
and right. And so, but I think that it's good to be humble and recognize that we have ways to improve and areas to improve. I think I pause sometimes at initial rejection and then I come back around, or they come back around, right? It's not always quick.
Yes. And I see a lot of you here said that you propose alternative ideas, and that's really great. That's kind of what I'm about to get into in just a moment. Some of you revisit, and this again, this is I think you could select multiple, so it might just be a combination of things. Only a few people say they stop at the initial rejection, and so I say that's great. I think sometimes we do have to stop, um, just depending on the nature of that relationship, right? I think again, there's so many different variations of people that we could be working with. So maybe it was necessary at that time, right? It's hard to know unless we have the full story. I will say, as a general, proposing alternative solutions and revisiting is definitely where we want to go. But, again, we're working with people, and so sometimes it's hard to give a concrete solution to that. I'm going to go ahead and move forward. Thank you for those who responded. Okay. So leveraging conflict and compromising, right? I think compromise is very important in that relationship. So we see here we have our instructional designer who says, this is what I suggest. You have your SME who says, this is what I want. And then from there, what do? We try to build a bridge and meet halfway. Sometimes this is really difficult to do, but I definitely think this is a step in the relationship that's helped me a lot in my own experience. I think this has also helped Kathryn a lot as well. Again, we're kind of talking about our tips and experiences here, so that's why I lean on this. And this kind of leads me into a process, or maybe even pattern would have been a better word to put here. but finding a process or pattern that works for you in that relationship. So we first have our ID suggestion. So lean on your expertise, offer your solutions, propose your ideas, and then you get rejected. And your SME says, I don't want this, or maybe they're even really headstrong. I work with some people that it's not even just a simple, I don't want to do that. Some people are just, they give you all these reasons why they don't want to do it, right? And we feel a little, there's a little bit of coldness there. Maybe they're a little bit abrasive. So how do we get past this? Is to make offers. So do your research, conjure up ideas, come up with alternative plans. And again, I think, it's not one size fits all. There's some situations where maybe, you couldn't make plans. But if there is room to do so, if you can make alternative plans, I definitely suggest this. I have an example I could lean on here for this. I worked with a faculty member who, in a syllabus, she wanted something very specific in there, but given that I work College of Pharmacy, we have a very regimented way of doing our syllabi. So we use a very rigid template. And so she, was like, I want to do it this way. And from my end, I'm like, well, the dean actually says you can't do that. So I kind of came in with this alternate plan that I was hoping that she'd be amenable to, which she was. And that was saying, why don't we put this information in Canvas that you initially wanted in the syllabus, but that way we can't put it there. And for those of you who don't know, Canvas is a learning management system. I'm sure most of you probably use Canvas, but I know there's some other LMS out there that other institutions use, right? And so that was really important. And another element to that, just to kind of top this section off, is that, I was trying to empathize with her. So, and I asked her why she wanted to do that. Why was she so headstrong about, why she wanted it in the syllabus? And it was really just boiled down to she felt like, whenever she was in pharmacy school, she had it a certain way, and that's how she learned. And she's thinking about the students. Just like us as IDs, she put the learners first. And I said, well, this alternate solution can actually achieve the same objective, right? And thankfully that worked in my favor. Again, it's not one size fits all, but it's really important to still explore those alternate opportunities.
And Sky, if I could interject there, that's an opportunity to use diffusion of innovation theory, right? So you can give an example to the professor, and I think this came up in the chat as well, showing a draft or an example, but even going further than that, of using an example and showing them how another professor used that innovation successfully, the results of that innovation, and make sure you pick a professor that's admirable, right? That they would look up to, that they would want to follow their example, um, and spread the innovation that way, and talk about how it solved the problem that they're facing and how it improved the instruction and the benefit, and how it would benefit them, how it would benefit the student. It is like a sales pitch, but to put them, help them imagine themselves in that other person's shoes and story tell and explain and describe the benefit, and the cost, right? The cost is their time, the cost is them taking a risk. I think that helping them understand that the benefit in the end is great. But establishing that relationship first of trust and listening to their problems. Like, I think the first, when you're doing that needs analysis, I ask them, what are your pain points? What are your students' pain points? What are you trying to accomplish? And so I can really make sure that when I give a suggestion, it is specific to their problem, and I am able to tell them, because you have grading burden, this will help you because you have a lack of student to student interaction in your course. We can add it with this tool. And let me show you how another professor solved that problem that you're having. And let's see if it's right for you, right? So, and I can show menus of options, and they're like, and then wait, right? And but not overwhelm them. But make sure that my pitch to them is specific to their needs and not some blanket tool that I just like to give to everyone, right? So really think about what I need to solve for them and with them. Sorry for interjecting, Sky. I will
Oh
proceed.
no, I'm passing the baton to you now. I finished
That's
my
right.
section.
Okay, so I'm
Yes.
four. There, you can take over looking at the question and answers then in the chat. It's been fun to keep up with. I've been trying to answer as they've come in. So here's what I want to talk about first, and this is why I think everyone's here is the difficulties, right? So how do we handle these difficulties that we're facing? And could you change the slide, please, Sky? All right. So why do you think expecting difficulties in communication makes it easier to overcome challenges? You can pick as many of these as you like. And I think that if we know those difficulties are coming and we can plan for them, and that difficulties are the norm, and we're going to embrace and accept them, and we know how we're going to deal with them because we're rock stars, we do so much better than if, oh my gosh, I got pushback, right? So I think that if we expect it, if we treat it as normal, it helps us be prepared, it helps us problem solve, or we feel resilient. Oh, we have a difficulty. Hello, let's handle this. Um, it will help us be more effective in our communication, less frustrated, and help us continuously improve and keep that healthy growth mindset, right? Where, all right, we haven't overcome this problem, but not yet, but we will, and it's okay. All right, so you didn't want to hear about accessibility today? All right, well, we'll just talk about it next time. It's okay. We're going to talk about it every time we meet, probably, and that's okay. So, I think that oh, this is good. This is exciting to see the blobs form, Sky. Thank you. If you could change to the next slide. Okay. But I've heard and I've wanted to say to myself, this SME is just difficult. They're just difficult. And we're not required to like everyone on this planet, right? So there are going to be some people that we're just naturally easier with and that it's going to be easy to make that relationship. And other times we're going to have to work hard for it and try to really empathize with them because they think so differently. I am an artist. I am an instructional designer. I'm an educator. I am not a pharmacist. So when I was in pharmacy, little did they know I failed high school chemistry. And I did not feel like I belonged. And sometimes I realized the difficulty was because we were thinking differently. Like I'm a divergent thinker, they're a convergent thinker. So things were just happening, and we weren't always on the same page. And so I had to realize that this difficulty, I couldn't take it personally. We're just different, and that's okay. And I had to be compassionate to their experience and these high standards that they hold themselves to and the perfection they're striving to achieve. And I need to remember that we both had the same goal. Um, and sometimes every relationship is going to have difficulties, and it's okay. And sometimes I might be the difficult one, and I need to look inward to see if I'm causing a problem. If you could change the slide, Sky. And then, and make sure if ever there is a mistake, be quick to apologize and stay calm. If they have anxiety or anger, and the mistake could be a variety of things, right? But if there's ever a time to apologize, always do it quickly and always be the calm one in the room. And that will pay off in huge dividends. So if they have anxiety, if they have anger, and if you can just answer that with empathy and compassion and stay in your Zen zone, and then go home to your Peloton and yell, whatever you do to stay calm in that moment, do that because you don't want to harm the relationship by rising to their level of anxiety or anger. And I have a professor that was uh, spoke loudly and with a lot of energy, and whenever we met my heart would start to beat faster and I would start to talk louder and I would become agitated, and so I had to be really mindful and conscious of not to match their energy. Take the higher ground every time when you can. So if they tell you something's your fault, I never argue with them. I just listen to them and I try to repeat back to them what I heard and sort of be empathetic to the situation, try to fix things as much as I can because sometimes there are mistakes. And and I will be the heavy. I will take that if they cannot allow themselves to make a mistake. So I'll listen and I'll accept that. And I won't necessarily shout accountability, right? But I'll listen to the problem and I will say, let's stay focused on the solution. Let's define the problem. Let's stay focused on the solution, move the project forward. And so that changes it from blaming, right, to, hey, it sounds like we have a difficulty. Let's figure out what that is and make sure we're still staying on the same page so we can like move this project forward and just keep the eyes going this way directly forward and not focus on who said they were going to write the quiz and enter the quiz questions by a certain date, right? So like it sounds like there was a miscommunication there. Let's see what we can do now to find a solution, whatever the problem might be. Um, okay. The question in the chat is yes, exactly. Thanks. I love that. I love that question. All right, so we're zen. All right, next slide. Okay, so best thing you can do when there's a barrier impeding the relationship is not go home and cry. What you need to do is figure out what that barrier is and define it so you can remove it. And is it misunderstanding, cultural differences, conflict, lack of trust, resistance to change, time constraints, whatever that is, there's this way to solve it, right? And if that can be defined and addressed, and you can go to your subject matter expert and say, it sounds like our expectations are different. Can we talk about that? Right? And your expectation is this, and mine is this. And I just want to make sure we're getting on the same page about where we're going, so we know what we're making. And that's a really uncomfortable conversation to have, but a very important one. Or it could be you. I had a professor not show to several meetings, and I had to have that conversation of what's going on? Should we stop meeting for now and circle back? Or what can I do differently? Is this time bad for you? Right? So, how can I accommodate your needs and make sure this project moves forward? Because I want you to meet your deadline. And or do we need to change the plan so you can meet the deadline and we only improve your course in these ways? Because we can adjust and pivot, but I feel like we should talk about that now so we have time to fix the project and adjust. So like I think that those things are good to fix up. And I've tried all sorts of things. And I think that don't give up. Be really kind to yourself. Be kind to them. If you could go ahead and change the next slide. I've got an eye on the time because we need to get to questions fast. So always be in a constant state of improving. So level up those conflict resolution skills. Study people who are able to navigate those difficult conversations, whether it's your mentor, your sister, your boss, whoever is doing it right, watch them, interact with others whenever you can, and see what they did to turn it around and help the subject matter expert focus on the goal rather than get lost in the detail, right? Or whatever it is that you think you're struggling with. Get feedback, role play if you have to, having those difficult conversations, embrace discomfort and practicing new ways of communicating. I had to pick up a phone. I don't like picking up a phone, but I had to do it. And I think that it's really important to do those things that make us uncomfortable that help the relationship. Slide, please. Don't ever bail. Don't ever bail on your subject matter expert. Don't ever give up on them. I've had subject matter experts, they had their feet in the sand. They thought for sure they weren't going to do something to improve their course. They thought they were going to fail. They'd rather retire. And 2 weeks later, they turn around and say, hey, Kathryn, I think I'm ready. I think I'm ready to use that tool. Thanks for not giving up on me. So I think I'm ready to improve. Let's try that thing you mentioned. Or so like sometimes people just need time for change, right? They need time to sit with it and think about maybe I can do that, right? Because a lot of it has to do with fear. So don't ever give up and keep a growth mindset for yourself and for them. And then next slide. Modes of communication really quickly. Let's talk about what not to do. So which communication channel do you think is most prone to difficulties in the SME ID relationship?
While these are coming in, I just wanted to say as well that both Kathryn and I have some availability after this. So whether we need to hop into a different Zoom or not, I think we're both totally fine with that because I know there's lots of questions. So I know many of you also have very busy schedules, but we're going to provide an outlet as well for you to ask more questions if they're not able to be answered today. Just wanted to throw that in there really quick.
Okay. So don't ever send another email again. No, that's not the message here. Use email sparingly, right? Go ahead and go to the next slide. So, how can we improve our communication? Is an over-reliance on digital communication. It leads to misinterpretation, reduced personal connection and personal interactions, miscommunication, ambiguity, communication gaps. It's a lot. So, how can we improve? Next slide. All right. There's a whole lot that shouldn't be an email. Don't ever send an email that's bad news, design feedback, anything that needs to be explained in any like 3 paragraphs. Cringe. Don't make me read that. Angry emails, write them. Write the angry email so you can organize your thoughts and then don't send it and then call them because you want to leverage the power of your physical voice to influence them, right? So you want to show empathy over the phone. An email telling them everything they need to do or everything they didn't do right or something that's wrong and you want to change, it's not going to be effective as an email. But if you call them and say, "Hi, I have a concern do you have time to talk?" Right? Like that's so different than um, a list of like the typed word can have such problems, right? So I think all of us have experienced this. So the email should be, "Hey, do you have time to talk? When is best to make a meeting or set a meeting to set a Zoom call? If not, are you ready for a quick phone call today sometime?" Um, Try to get rid of the problem as quickly as you can if there's been a misunderstanding or something needs to be addressed. So next slide. This is the meme that I saw. I could not find the original source, but this is Sky in the yellow, and this is me in the blue. I sent an email. I also texted them. I sent another email, and I'm thinking that's going to solve the problem, and it doesn't, right? And Sky's over here. I would have called them at the beginning. Like, why did you even try email? And I'm like, because calling is hard. It's not my natural way of wanting to communicate with people. So my sister talks on the phone 3 times as much as I do. I text 3 times as much as she does. It's good to know where your comfort is for communicating, but you need to meet them where they are and you need to do what's effective, even if it's not your natural style. So next slide. And so right now we want to help you solve a problem because we know you're here to solve real problems. So if you could just type 200 character limit of a problem that you're having with a subject matter expert that you would like Sky and I to discuss. We wanted to open this up like back when we read paper newspapers, there were advice columns. So I think it's a little like that. Oh, that's good. They're AI resistant. That's a really good conversation to have. So, Sky, do you want to be the AI resistant subject matter expert for me? And I will
Sure,
be the ID?
sure. So a little game of role play here.
Yes.
Yeah, so let me read through this again. Yeah, so I just, I don't really know too much about AI, and I'm afraid that that's going to result in some, what's the word I'm looking for? Academic dishonesty with students, and so I really just don't want any use of it in my course whatsoever.
I understand that. I can see why you would say that because I do think that students are using it in their workflow to fulfill their assignments. But um, do you have time for me to show you a few ways that other professors are using it for automated feedback for discussions?
I'd
Because
love
the
to.
student, yeah, that's great because the students really like getting fast feedback that is directly related to their submissions, and they like that tool. So, oh, thanks for being open to that.
Let me read some of these
Um,
too.
was there anything here that you want to talk about, Sky?
Sure. Oh, this one about we don't exchange cell numbers. I think that's definitely okay. I guess I was assuming, at least in my university, we all get assigned like a phone to use. And even though I'm remote, I use like Cisco Jabber. I guess if you don't have a way or any type of phone, um, I would definitely look into some kind of tool or app that you can use that would allow that method of communication. So maybe you use Teams, for example. There's a way to call on Teams, or I know there's something called Google Voice. I think you might have to pay a little bit of subscription there, but no matter what, I would definitely say there should be at least one avenue where phone is available. And I really love Teams because of that chat feature. So it kind of works like it's texting, and that way you have it to where it's only during working hours, so it's not someone blowing up your regular phone. I'll even
Mm-hmm.
say I've had some, faculty that I've shared my cell number with. It just really depends on the nature of your relationship and if you're comfortable with that. Um, so really quick though, I do see that we're almost at time. So just for, I guess my question for Tom is, do we need to hop off of the Zoom into another one if we want to extend time for questions, or what should we do logistically if we want to stay here?
Well, thank you, Sky and Kathryn, and thank you everybody who are still with us. And we can feel free to stay here for a few more minutes. And if your schedule allows, it's great time to share and collaborate. Yes, please let's just keep the wonderful conversations. Thank you.
Thank
This,
you.
there's some great problems here that are very much in detail. Uh, Sky, which do you want to show the screen that has the link for the
Yes.
follow-up, and then we'll come back to the screen.
Yes. So really quick, um, and do you have a link that you could put in the chat for everyone too, just in case they want to put it on their computer? If you scan this QR code, or if you use the link, if Kathryn's able to
Yeah, I'll
find
put it,
that.
I'll put it, yep, we can go back. I'll put the link in the chat, and if you want to go back to that question page and pick out some questions for us to
Yes.
answer, that would
Yeah.
be
So
great.
essentially, this is just some Q&A that we can answer outside of once this meeting is over. So feel free. You don't have to fill it out now if you don't want to. Those are going to be the ones that we can't cover today. So
I
Kathryn's
like
going to
that
put that in
one.
the chat.
I like that one about meeting institutional standards, right? That's something that we all have to do is convince our faculty to meet institutional standards. And I think that how would you motivate? I think for Sky, you have quality standards that you have to have courses. How would you solve that if you're
Can you
trying to
repeat that one
convince
more time?
if you're
Are
trying to
you
convince
asking
it?
me?
Yeah, if you're trying to convince a
Sorry.
faculty member to meet institutional standards, how would you do that?
So if we're meeting institutional standards, I think that's a different kind of barrier that gets kind of thrown into that relationship. So it's like if you have to do something, I know, for example, like at UF, like we have to meet certain standards by a certain year. So kind of reminding them that, there's some standards that we have to meet, and explaining why those standards are even in place. So instead of just saying like, here's these things that we have to meet. It's kind of going in and saying why they're there. A lot of the times, if it's like institutional, right, it's for accessibility. I know that there's plenty of people that didn't use Canvas until COVID happened. And even back when I was a student, like I had people who didn't use it, never knew what my grades were. There was really huge lack of accessibility. So I think, helping them understand, and again, I think that kind of goes with empathy, put them, in your shoes, but also help them understand from the learner's perspective. And just let them know that you're there for support. So it could be overwhelming if they say like, oh, I need to meet these institutional standards, but you remind them that you're there and you're more than happy to dedicate your time to helping them get to those standards. Right. And then eventually, we like to train the trainer, but sometimes you do have to, um, kind of walk with them and hold their hand, right? That's part of the reason why we're here. Let's scroll and look at some of these really quick.
Ooh, discussing issues out of their control. I've had a lot of diverging conversations like that. They want to discuss issues that are out of their control. They want to discuss something political that's happening. They want to discuss things that we can't change, right? So I always try to steer the conversation to solution finding for things we can control, and not break tools because sometimes they'll have a way that they want to use the tool inappropriately that the tool just doesn't do well at, right? So, like, I always try to encourage them to um, not focus too much on what can't be done, but what can we do, like with this time that we have, and move forward and stay solution focused, and steer the conversation away. But sometimes I had one professor, I just had to let him rant for 20 minutes and then we could get to work. So I think that knowing that he had to get that out first allowed us to work better later. And that's just what we had to do. And so I think that we got less done than if he didn't have to rant. And I wish he didn't have to, but allowing him space to do that did allow us space to work. So I think shortening that would have been helpful. I probably could have strategized how to shorten that rant, but letting them feel heard and empathized with lets you get to work. Sky, do you have anything else here that you want to talk about?
Yeah, I saw one. It's hard. There's so many messages everywhere. So I looked at this one here. So thank you for answering that question, Kathryn. This one that says I have an SME that's messaging me updates via Teams. It's very hard to track her messages that way. I wish she would send an email, but I also do like the flexibility of Teams. I fully relate to this. I use Teams at work, but I also use email. And I think that's part of like that initial stage of like setting boundaries and letting them know how you're available and what modes of communication, right? So if you let them know there are certain things like through a Teams chat, let them know that you may not get to that right away. If it's something like, either urgent or something formal that requires a certain process, I would say let's send an email. Because I have someone who I actively chat all the time in Teams, but I was like, I'm gonna actually send you an email about this one thing because I want it to be documented a certain way and it's just a little bit more formal. So I think you just have to kind of sit down, open up a document or write it on paper if you want, and think about what kind of communication do I want through Teams chat, and what kind of communication do I want to occur through email. Let them know, have a meeting, have a phone call with that SME and let them know your preference. And again, empathy, right? So try to understand if they counter that, try to understand where they're coming from and then go from there to see where you can meet in the middle. Because sometimes, you know, it might come back with alternatives, but you know, some people decide they communicate a certain way. Like Kathryn mentioned earlier, she sends more texts than phone calls. I think I'm the same way, but sometimes we do have to adapt a little bit. But as long as we establish that what each communication is for, that'll be very helpful for us.
Right. And it's very defined in pharmacy too, like where their workflow is you put files in a particular spot, and the instructional designer can get a notification when a file is placed. And then, and so like there's information that's put in certain places at certain times. And so if everyone follows sort of that same script of how we communicate, it's very helpful. But then we have occasionally a professor that would refuse to use Teams and because everyone else was sending text messages. And so I just succumbed and I shared my cell phone number because I felt like I had to get her to reply back. So I think that being flexible is important to getting the job done.
Faculty expecting ID to act as data slash text entry refuses to put content in LMS as agreed to. Respect is a two-way street. Where do we go from there?
Ah, okay. Right. So that's that might be
Yeah.
cultural in the past that might have been done for that faculty member and they don't have time. They feel like they don't have time to do that. And it could be asking the faculty member who else is assisting them that could do that. If they have a TA that could assist or a graduate student that could assist. Um, and and then just making sure that you talk to your supervisor first and getting support if you do refuse a task, right? So if they're asking you to do a certain thing and you don't feel like it falls under your responsibilities, be sure to talk to your mentor or supervisor, someone that you're working under, before you say no. I'm not doing that for you moving forward. I think that if there's a middle ground there for a bit and that you can mentor them, find out why they're not doing to do it, like why they're not doing it, and helping them to do it, maybe do it side by side for a bit, and then ask them to take that over. I don't know the details of that, but that's a really good. In some IDs, that is the role, right? Like that is something that there's an expectation. For others, it's not. I think that they might have had a subject matter expert in the past that did that for them. That might be the issue there.
That's a good point. In my role that, it is an expectation that I do, for quality management in Canvas. So I do have to put the things in Canvas, and some faculty do want to do it themselves, and that's fine. So you also have to kind of see like what within your job description, if you're someone that is supposed to train the trainer and eventually they're supposed to be independent, that's again another situation where you want to have a conversation with them, and it may just be that they're just not comfortable with it and they're maybe not as quick as you and confident in building, and you want to sit down and show them exactly how to do it. And if it comes down to, if it's really not your responsibility, it's theirs, and you've kind of done your part, again, I think it's important to have that conversation so that way you could see why they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing, right? For me, it's, going to be different because it is the expectation that I do it. So I will always do that. But,
Hmm.
other IDs may not be in that situation. They may just work with them for a certain amount of time. And beyond that, they're going to be kind of on their own.
Hmm. There's a comment in here about working with a people pleaser that likes everything and pushes back against nothing, except you need. So like what you could do is pose the pushback yourself, right? If you feel like, well,
Mhm.
some faculty would say this. Is there, is this the case within your course? And then I think that happens at the needs analysis phase. I've had faculty that agree to everything I've done, and we've built really nice things. So I don't think it's a problem having someone agreeing with me. Um,
Yeah, I think I would just add to this that, I would also like if you're proposing things and you feel like if what you're saying is like they're accepting maybe too much, I would just let them know kind of the ins and the outs of what you're proposing. Like, here's the pros and here's the cons. Like, you can do this, but let's consider, maybe the cons of that as well, and that it's okay that you don't adopt everything that I suggest. Um, and just saying exactly what you said, right? So you need some give and take to develop something good. So maybe that's something that you literally tell them straight up in a meeting is that, part of my job is, I'm proposing all these things, but just remember, don't be afraid to challenge those things and ask questions about them. Because some people are genuinely people pleasers. It's good that you recognize that that's the personality and that, because I could think of some people too who like love educational technology and they love to just do everything under the sun. And it's like, okay, we need to take it take it easy a little bit, to ensure that we don't, go a little bit overboard. I hope that's kind of answering what this question was. I think it's interesting to see that kind of case where you have someone that, it's the opposite, right, of resistant. They just want to do everything.
so if you could scroll up, Sky, and let's just look at a few more. There was one about an older SME that was a little disrespectful, and that can be that can be hard. Um, I don't deal with disrespect well. So that's probably a time when I'd reach out to my mentor and describe the situation and brainstorm of when this behavior occurs, how do I respond? So I feel like I can keep my self-respect, right? I think that it's important that we don't allow ourselves to be abused. So I think that there is a way to be stand up for ourselves appropriately, right? So I think that it's important to be empathetic and compassionate, but also advocate for ourselves and our position and what we do, but in a way that is non-confrontational, right? That just is, it's setting a boundary of I don't like being called honey. Thank you. But I do like working with you. So let's talk about the course we're working on. Thank you.